Hello there, this is Bibi Cameron, and in this video I'm going to show you 3 easy ways to add color to 3-dimensional die-cut flowers. For today I'm using Susan Garden dies, and all the supplies are listed in the video description. So I'm going to start with a super duper easy technique to add color to these flowers, and we are going to be using alcohol markers, but not in a traditional way. So the first thing we are going to do is to die cut the paper. This dies tells you how many pieces of each one you have to cut to make these flowers. And I'm also using the Spellbinders die cutting machine in Neenah Solar Crest 80-pound cardstock. Now we are going to use 2 or 3 markers. I'm using here R27, RV29 and R59 Copic markers, and I'm going to apply the darker shade around the edges of this die cut like so. And I'm going to do it at the front of the paper and also at the back of the paper. Then when this is done, I'm going to apply the other 2 marker colors, and I'm going to make sure that I have a white gap in the center of those petals. Now that we have applied a good amount of ink at the edges of those petals, we are going to use an alcohol blending solution over those white areas like so, and that is going to make the ink bleed towards the edges of the petals, and this is going to make a hot mess there, but you can use tools to handle the wet petals. I'm going to do exactly the same with this small petal here, and you can apply 1 or 2 marker colors if you want to. This time I'm going to use another blending solution. I found this better than rubbing alcohol, and this is called Surgical Spirit. It's really easy to get here in the UK. And again, I'm going to apply this over that white area of the petals, and I'm going to allow this to work. Again, we have a hot mess, but it's easy to clean with the same Surgical Spirit. And when you are working with this kind of inks and supplies, it's always good to have the windows open or to have good ventilation. And because I'm impatient, I'm just using my heat tool to dry up this. And once this is dry, I apply this light green pan pastel in the center of those petals. And to do this, I'm using a detail blending tool, also listed in the video description. Now, to add interest to these petals, I'm going to use a white marker or pen to add some lines like so. And this completely changed the appearance of the petals. Now I'm going to add shape to these petals, and to do that I'm applying pressure from the top to the bottom of the petal in a semicircular motion. And I do the same on both sides of each petal. When the petals are smaller, you might need to do this just once on each petal. And then this is optional, but I like to do it, and it's recommended by Susan, the creator of these dies, is to use a tweezer to pinch the petals here at the bottom, just like that, to add extra shape. And the next thing I'm going to do is to glue this together like so. And I'm also going to add a little bit of glue there, and I'm going to allow to dry that while I add color to the leaves in the exact same way that I added color to the flower. So I'm applying the marker at the edges of the die cuts, and then using a blending solution, I'm going to make that ink bleed, and that's how I easily apply colors to those leaves. This is just one way. There are so many ways to do this. Now that the glue on that flower is dry, I'm going to add these beautiful and thick gold micro beads. These are gorgeous, and that's going to finish that flower beautifully. I'm going to shape these leaves. You can see how these leaves looks when they are finished, and all you have to do is to adhere all the pieces together to make different flower clusters or bouquets. The sky's the limit. You can just use 1 flower for your project, or 2 flowers, or a cluster of 3 flowers. I love the look and feel of this on vellum, and before even thinking what I'm going to do with these flowers, I like to make them first. So I also made them using distress inks. So instead adding alcohol markers, I applied distress inks all over the petals. I shade them, glue them together, and I'm also adding here some ink at the edges of the petals, and you can see how different these flowers looks. So depending on the project or the kind of materials you might have, you can use different mediums, and you can also use some other dyes from this collection like baskets or flower pots to complete your projects. I didn't show you how to put the pistil of these flowers together. As you can see here, that has a lot of dimension. So alternative to that, I use antique gold microbeads on the center of the flowers. After a couple of hours, I finished some projects to share with you, and because I didn't want this video to be super long, I'm going to be sharing similar boxes design in a next video. For now, let me show you how easy it is to put together a card using these flowers. So I just die cut a frame for the front panel of the card, and I glue the flower like so. I made any adjustment that need to be done, and to finish this card, I added a hot foiled banner and a couple of ladybugs. For the box, I added a die cut sentiment, and for that tiny box, I also added a hot foiled banner and just one single flower. So here are some pictures for you. I hope you like this easy and quick coloring idea. Now let me show you another super duper easy technique, also using floral die cuts. And for this, we are going to use distress inks and mica sprays. I will advise to add distress inks here and there over the die cuts and not all over the die cuts. We can apply 2 colors of ink, and we can spray this with water. Then we are going to allow the paper to dry a little bit, and then we are going to shape it. There are many different ways to shape this. You can use different types of stylus to do this. I'm not going to worry too much about realistic shape and colors. I'm using distress ink colors I have, and I'm mixing distress inks with oxide inks. It's totally okay to do this. So the idea here is to add some kind of color and some shape. And after doing this and gluing all the pieces together, we are going to spray these flowers using distress sprays or nubo, shimmer, or mica sprays, anything you might have, because I really want to transform this inked flower into something more metallic. I was experimenting and I decided to use a spoon sugar distress oxide spray, which is a very opaque medium. So that makes the flower to look very pale, but you can still see the colors underneath. The next thing I'm going to do is to spray this using a nubo sparkle spray, just once, and I'm going to dry this up, and that's how I give this absolutely beautiful metallic look and feel to this flower. You can also see all those bright colors underneath the petals. To finish this flower, I'm also going to use antique gold micro beads and metallic wax in gold color as well for the leaves. This is just to add a different look and feel to the flowers. You're not asking me though, but this wax smells gorgeous. And I'm so glad to be able to work with these new supplies from Little Birdie Craft. This is an American company that a few months back sent me some products, especially mediums, and I found them very beautiful. I just apply a little bit of that wax here just to reveal that embossed pattern created by the die. And I didn't cover the whole thing. I just wanted a very rustic look. And I also wanted to share that with you because it's another way to add a metallic accent to leaves, flowers, or any other element you might have in your cards. So I need to make another 2 flowers, and for the next flower I'm just going to apply a spray directly on the die cuts, just like that. This is the same as Spoon Sugar Distress Oxide Spray. I'm going to allow this to dry, and then I'm going to shape this, and I'm going to glue the flower together just like I did the previous one. This is done and the paper is still a little bit wet. I like to pinch the edges of the flower just to give extra shape. Then I'm going to add a darker ink over the edges of these petals using a blending brush. And then I apply Blush Nuvo Sparkle Spray. I allow this to dry, and then I also added antique gold micro beads in the center of the flower, and I made a box topper using all these elements. And I also use a few dies from Foliage and Ladybugs die set to add a couple of branches and also the ladybugs. So here you can see how all those metallic accents added to the branches and the flowers and also the flower pot makes a huge difference in the look and feel of the finished project. Okay, for the last technique, I'm going to use dye inks, and I'm going to be using Simon Says Stamp inks. And to apply these inks over the paper, I'm using a blending brush. This is a very soft brush, so this is just super simple and easy to do. Now I'm going to use a darker ink and this detail blending tool just to add a hint of ink in the center of the petals, like so. After applying color, I shape the flowers using this shaping tool, and I start applying pressure from the center to the end of the petals just to round that shape a little bit. And then I use this tweezer and I pinch the paper around it over the center of that die cut to give extra shape. Then I'm going to do exactly the same with this little petal here. All I have to do is to glue the petals together. So I'm going to add a little bit of liquid glue behind this petal here, and I'm going to place it over the other little petal just to finish that flower. And I'm going to do the same over and over to make several flowers. And then I'm going to choose a color of micro beads and I'm going to add those on the center of the flowers. This is easy peasy to do, and the little flowers are really beautiful. Now I want to show you another sample to use your micro beads. So I'm going to add glue on this piece here, and I'm going to allow this to dry while I put together this beautiful bucket. Again, I die cut this out of Neenah Solar Crest 80-pound cardstock, and I'm using here different brown distress ink colors, applying the darkest shades at the edges of the image and the brighter shades at the center. And a tip to do this is that you don't need to worry about doing any of this because it's going to look nice anyway. So once I apply the distress in colors, I'm also going to add a little bit of that golden wax, and I'm just using my fingertip to do that. And I love this because it dries immediately. It feels very soft and it smells beautiful, and it's very easy to wipe off your fingers or your work surface. Now I'm going to grab my micro beads and I'm going to dab this tacky glue inside this cup filled with those micro beads just to make this flower, and I'm going to place this to a side so that this will dry completely while I finish painting this bucket. So I'm going to use this metallic paint to add some accents, and I'm also going to completely paint this handle using this silver paint as well. And you can see that you can overlap different mediums and you won't have any problem at all. So I initially glue the handle facing up, but I like more the handle to be in this way. So once we have this done, we can start adding the flowers on this. There is a die in the die set that will cut this piece. All you have to do is to add green dye inks over the piece, shape it a little bit to add a little bit of dimension, And this will be a base to glue over your flowers and your leaves. So here I'm shaping a leaf, and what I'm doing is just to use my stylus, and then with this tweezer I'm going to pinch the paper like so. Hard to see there, but the dye creates an impression on the paper, and there are some little lines on the leaves, and I'm just placing the tweezer over that line, and then I'm pinching the paper just to crease the paper over that area. So as simple as that, I made the leaves, and I'm going to glue 4 of those leaves over that edge, and from there I'm going to build up this flower bouquet. So I'm adding glue over those background pieces, and then I'm going to start gluing my flowers. You can add more leaves if you need to, and I also wanted to show you here how to add extra background pieces. And I initially thought that I didn't need those pieces, but trust me, you need them. I was thinking, why Susan added those pieces? And they add a lot of beauty to the bouquet. It's something just in the background, but adds dimension and also color. And it also gives a nice base to adhere those flowers. To finish, I also added little lines and dots on the leaves using a gel pen. And I use this topper for a very simple card design. And I also added a little ladybug. As a bonus project, I also want to share with you in 30 seconds how I made the ladybugs. So I first used this tiny little die, and I used a red marker to cover the die cut. I can use a dark marker to add some shadows. Once this is done, I use a black pen to add color to the head and the bottom part of the ladybug. Then you have to shape this using a very small stylus, and then you need to flatten the head of the ladybug to give extra shape. Next, you need to add a drop of Nuvo crystal glaze over the body of the ladybug, and you are done. And that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Do not forget to subscribe to my channel or to visit my blog for more ideas and inspiration. Thank you very much for watching, and happy crafting. Bye!